Okay, since it is Leil Yom Yerushalaim, so we will somehow connect this somehow to that idea. If we have our sheets, they sent them to you, so we have the sources. Let's start with the Shem Yichud and then somehow get into Yerushalayim from this. So the Shem Yichud, which is most people don't usually say that before mitzvahs, but interesting enough, in the Siddur, many people say it before Sfirat haOmer. I'd like to explain and modify it a bit in order to introduce to the second stage of this topic. This is a kavanah written. It comes from a book called Chemdas Hayamim, which was actually, lately we know it comes from the Beis Medrash of the Ari. It's actually the Mari al-Ghazi, the father of the Marit al-Ghazi. Okay, if you want to know, he was Rosh Yeshiva of Bet El in Yerushalayim with the Mekubalim, who was a Goyen Olam, one of the Gedolei Adoros at the time. One book is called Arad Rabbanan, and he's the author of this Chemdas Hayamim book, which was quite anonymous for many years. He wrote basically that a lot of tefillos you have, which come from there, which came through the Beis Medrash of the Ari, for example. All these Rebbeinu Shalom you have when they stake out the Sefer Torah on Yom Tif, right? You have all these Rebbeinu Shalom and all those things. It's all from there, friends. So they become part and parcel of what you think is the Nusach HaTfilah. Those who come from the original Ashkenaz don't say any of them. Okay, you also don't say Yud Gimel Midas on Yom Tif by Psichus Aaron in the original Ashkenaz. This is all comes from the base of Rosh Yeshiva. But here's one which is found commonly in multiple Siddurim. Let's read it. L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu U'Shchintei. This is basically Lurianic Kabbalah, that the reason of the mitzvahs I'm doing to create a celestial union in Kudsha Brichu, which literally means the God which is separated beyond comprehension, very similar to the idea of Areat Mekudeshes Li. You know, most young ladies think they're being sanctified. Like a carbon oila. No, it doesn't mean that. It means I'm cutting you off from sexual interaction with people due to our unique relationship. That's a Gemara in Kiddushin of Beis Beis. You tell to the young Kalis, it'll be a letdown. I'm basically cutting you off from sexual interaction with people around you due to our unique relation. It's Harei Mekudeshesli. Even Harei Mekudesh LaShamayim, it doesn't mean set aside for Shamayim, is cut off from the world due to Shamayim. It's a Taisvis. That Beis Amid Beis in Kiddushin. I suggest you look it up. The Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu, the God which is cut away beyond our comprehension. That's what you say in Kedusha, the Sidra, and all the Kedushas. You say Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvakot, Malach Chol Haaretz Kvodo. What are you talking about? You're describing the Malachim, the Srafim, the Eifanim. They want to understand. They see the glory of God. They want to, glory is an external expression of something. Where's the source of the glory of God? They want to understand God in essence. And basically they say, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. He's beyond all three levels of comprehension, whether it be Chokhmah, Binah, or Dat. He's away, beyond. He's above and beyond us. That's what. But yet, Malach Chol Haaretz Kvodo, his kavod, the expression of that infinite X, which we can't comprehend, is all over. Yes, creation is one big Kvod HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's an expression of his of the uniqueness. For example, many people never met Napoleon or any other very special king. Yet somehow the monarchy is expressed in the whole nation. People will go. You see, they go to the Evelid, which is the burial place of the tomb of Napoleon. People are constantly lining up to pay their respects. Goodness sakes, brother. It's 300 years ago. They never met the guy. They don't know what he was like. So this is what the Malachim say. Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvakot. He is beyond comprehension of all three levels of intelligence. And yet, Malach Chol Haaretz Kvodo, yes, we feel his supremacy all over. Okay, so this is what L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu. What does that mean? To make a total oneness between that God, which is beyond comprehension, U'Shchintei, and the God does reside among us. In other words, I'd like to bring more of the essential God, infiniteness of God, into my realization. I want to have, well, if I would think in college terms, I'd like to understand more the philosophy of science. Okay? I'd like to understand, bring more of God in essence into the practical reality, which I express is nothing more than an expression of God. Shechina. We talk about Shechina, the God which we can touch, feel, experience, the God of creation. Hashochein imam betoch tumatam. He resides with us. What does that mean? We have no clue of the identity of the infinite, but we see that unbelievable fact that we as a nation exist for so many years, and we are probably one of the most endangered species in history, yet we continue to exist. And there was the Gemara saying that this hein gvurosav, hein no rasav, the fact is kipsai chad, exists in Ben Shivim Zeivim, between 70 wolves which are trying to destroy her, and yet she exists. I think of this every time in Chodesh Iyar when we go through Yom Ha'atzmaut and ultimately Yom Yerushalaim, which we took back even Judea and Samaria, biblical Palestine, biblical Israel, came totally under the rule of Malchus Yisrael. This is doesn't make sense. Bluntly, we're not supposed to be here, and yet we are. So this is called a Hein Noir Oisab. It's a Gemara. Actually, Yaakov Emden in his Akdama to his Siddur writes that if you want to understand the Noira, think when you say Akela Gola Gibber Noira, there's nothing more Noira than Jewish history. He said the fact that Jewish existence continues is much more stupendous than Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf is a one-time flip occurrence. This is an ongoing reality which is beyond comprehension. That's what he writes. Well, he's mechaben. When it says Noira, he thinks of the Jewish experience. For us, and living in this century, a previous century, we should be thinking about, Chodesh Iyar, Yemei HaHoda'ah Chodesh Iyar. This is Noira. Unbelievable Noira. So we're trying to bring more celestial infiniteness into our experiential God. It's a nice way of saying, I'd like to know more of, I taste the apple. I realize the apple is an expression of God's law of science. I'd like to understand more the the infiniteness of God when I taste that apple. That's what it means, okay? If you also say that in every bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech olam borei praise. What does Baruch mean? So if you look carefully, Baruch means I recognize that you're the source of all, and let there be more understanding of you of sources all. Those are two things found in a Rashba and a Chinuch. That there be more understanding that you are the creator of an apple. In other words, when you eat an apple, you're asking to understand more of godliness. It's seen in creation. This is the yichud of Kudsha Brichu V'Shchinte. All the mitzvahs, according to the Ari, the Tanya elaborates this really at length, is to bring more of a yichud, a total oneness between creation and its source. Bringing more of that awareness into reality. One would say the chipping away at the sense of independence of reality, and more seeing it as nothing more than expression of the incomprehensible infinite. This is the idea of yichud Hashem. I do this both with awe and with love. Very interesting. What am I trying to do? The Yached Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. These two ideas are expressed in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei that you see. Yud, this is based on a famous book of Rav Kook called Reish Milim, where he explains the depth of the Hebrew letters, and I'll take it from there. Yud, I don't know if you're being Israeli, I would tell you of the Lag BaOmer song. One thing is Bar Yochai, they sing Yud Chochma Kduma. One of the stanzas says Bar Yochai Yud Chochma Kduma. Lamed Beis Nesivais Reishis Tavuna. That's one of the stanzas in that book. Most people don't say to the answer, don't look at it. It's a very heavy piyut full of Kabbalah. Yud is the smallest letter of the alphabet, which represents what we call mathematical point. Equals that beginning of everything, which is not perceived a line and not perceived a dot. It's mathematical point, which from that point of creation, you have further, it's called line, dot, space, matter, etc. But the idea of a mathematical point is something which is the reasons for all, yet it's not tangible. There is no such thing as a point in reality. Every point that you know is nothing more than a small line. It has a beginning, it has an end, it has a top, it has a bottom. So conceptually, there may be an idea of point, what you call dot, but in reality, it doesn't exist. It exists only in the world of concept, which is true. And I once pointed out in a class that the one who perceived this in a beautiful way is good old Michelangelo in the famous Sistine Chapel. If you ever saw, at least, well, I don't think you went there because the Chayrit's also to go there. It's a church which is very active. It's in the Vatican, for goodness sakes, and it's a very active place. So you're not allowed to go there. It's a pity because I always wanted to. And I remember talking to Baron Lichtenstein, is there any way I can go? He said, well, I don't think so, and he was right. So it didn't go. But if you look it up, you'll see the fresco there, the beautiful fresco of creation of God, where there's Adam stretching out his hand, and there's like some hand coming from heaven, almost touching his hand, but there's a small little void between the finger of God and the finger of man. That small little void, incomprehensible, but actually is what is called Yud, mathematical point. That is the beginnings of the touching of the hand, that part which you can't really comprehend because it's really not, it's not tangible. And when we do our theoretical math, we understand that. So this is called theoretical point. That's Yud, the beginnings of all. What's Hey? We take that beginning of all and we give it texture. Look, you see the little house around it. There's a Dalet which has the Yud in it. That's a Hey. Dalet means the 4 dimensions, top, bottom, length, and width. There you have it. And this is what you have. This is called the Yud, which has a framework. That's called Bina. Bina means taking an idea, a kernel, and giving it, fleshing it out. Now I understand what's happening here. This is called the Yud K. So this is the idea of the God of totally not comprehensible, and even with some kind of an understanding. It's a cerebral understanding of God, yet doesn't come down to my practical world. Vav, as you all know, is a hook. It looks like Kamin Gam. That's actually found in the beginning of Psachim. Kamin Gam means to say it's like a hook. That's what a Vav is. It actually acts as a hook. The letter Vav is a hook, a connecting consonant, which puts things together. What is the idea? So Rav Kook explains, in order to connect, you take theory. Yud is the theoretical religion, one would say. But if you want to be practical, you want to bring it down, make a long vav there. You want to connect it to human reality. It can't be from the center of that yud, because the center of yud would be very extreme. You've got to go to what's called the left side of the letter, which is your right side, a bit watered down theory in order to make it applicable. It's what's called, that is a very interesting idea. As you can have these great theories, but a fundamentalist is not the person which will ultimately will change the world or bring thought into the world. He will create the stain at the most. In order to connect to the world, you have to have the capability of bringing down more of a thing that people can relate to, the watered down version, the left side, actually, bring it into reality. I'll give you an example we can understand. Look, I can teach Hilchos Shabbos and show exactly all the chiyuvei misa and chorus and chatas, and it could be a pretty rough day. I teach you halachas of Shabbos. If you don't really know halachas of Shabbos, but daftaka zayin a Talmud Chacham not to be mechal Shabbos. What can I tell you? The Gra writes that if you can't move unless you're baki b'ilchos Shabbos, because the odds of moving beheter without knowledge is pretty bad. That's right. I think the Mishnah Berurah brings it in his Akdama to the Hilchos Shabbos. So he says, if I want to do Kiruv, I'm not going to tell that part of it. I'll tell the nice part of Shabbos, the beautiful part of Shabbos, all the nice, redeeming parts of Shabbos. That's what I will teach. Okay, that connects people to Shabbos. Afterwards, they're going to tell them the whole truth. What can I do? It reminds me of NCSY Kolau. What do? They tried to hook in 10th graders into learning. So they teach them Candyland Torah, you know what I mean? Like Chaboros, whatever they're called. Like sweet little Hefzer Gavra, things like that. Nebuch, then they come to Etchison, they're told this is, with greatest respect, that's not what it really is. You know what I mean? It's the nitty-gritty. It's a lot of work, legwork, and thought. That's not what they're used to. It's a problem. It reminds me, remember that everybody loved the Rav's Yortzeit Shurim. They were beautiful. But when it came to his daily shir, that was rough. If you thought everything was going to be the Yortzeit shir, that's the candy land of Reb Soloveitchik. The real Reb Soloveitchik was in the blood shir, and that was hardcore labor. So it's the same idea here. The idea is that Vav is connected, taking Chochmah, but bringing it down, making it applicable to people. Okay, that's called Das. Das is the capability of connecting your theory into the applied world in front of you. Hey is the realization of that. The realization of that idea now comes into my world, and now I can act upon it, feel about it, talk about it, etc. So the Yud and the Hey, we call the cerebral approach, the theoretical God, which is the purest, fundamental. And then you have the Vav K, is the more applicable aspect of God when it comes down to humanity, and I can touch it and feel it. The Yachid Shem Yudke B'Vavke means I know I experience God in science. I want to bring more of the purest part into my experience, because we don't want to be just watered down. We want to understand what's really happening here. So please show me more, give me more a handle on infinity and literally the nullification of the independent identity of existence. That's what you're asking for, into my existence. I want to feel, not just hear about, the nullifications of the sense of independence. I'm actually totally dependent, nothing more than an expression of his women will. That's what you're asking for, and that's the Shliachet Shem Yudke Vavke B'Yichud Shlim. I want to do this in total social union. So every time you do a mitzvah, it's for the purpose of bringing the incomprehensible into the experiential, which is decided by making oneness of the name of God, that the Yudke, which is the incomprehensible, the purest, into the practical reality. I want to have more of the purest theoretical, not theoretical, but actually something which is normally not experienced, into my experience. I'd like to experience more in the Vuchim when I eat an apple, if you know what I mean. That's what I'd like to experience. So this is what we're saying. This happens by doing mitzvahs. Mitzvahs create that reality. This is an idea to remember. Then he continues and he says, and here there's a problem. The Kiyam Sfirat Sfirat haOmer kmo shekatuv Sfirat lechem marchat Shabbat Yom Yerushalaim haOmer atnufa sheva Shabbatot tiyena, etc. Now this is a problematic pasuk. This is a machlekes in Gemara and Rishonim. Is Sfirat haOmer b'zman hazeh deraisa or derabana? What's the halacha? Is it deraisa or is it derabana? So we all know the Rambam Shita and Hilchos Tzmidim Musaf in Perek Zayin Halacha Chav Dalet says that Sfiras haOmer b'zman hazeh is deraisa. It's a mitzvah deraisa. And since it's a mitzvah deraisa, you have to be makbid all the sveikus of a deraisa, etc. This would be the din. Well, if that's the case, this makes sense. So which mitzvah am I fulfilling? I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of Sfat L'Lechem Merchat HaShabbat Miyom HaViachem Omer Atnufa. We didn't bring in Omer Atnufa. It means the day which is Ra'ui, which is worthy for bringing the Omer Atnufa. But all the other Rishonim, Ramban, Ran, Balamar, you name it, everybody and his cousin, based on a Gemara and Menachos, and I'll quote to you shortly, say that no, it's only a din d'Rabbanan. What is this Gemara? And that's how we paskin. So to say this is written by a person who he himself had thought that the halacha is like the Rambam. That's how he paskin. We don't hold that way today. And for us to consider it's Rabbanan, I'm going to show you immediately a proof that we don't hold that way. We shouldn't be saying this in that fashion, because when you call a mitzvah de Rabbanan a mitzvah de Raisa, you're over Bal Tosif. So all these Chassidish Rebelach that say this, they scream and they shake, they're over Bal Tosif. It's very simple. They're saying that it's a mitzvah de Raisa, and it isn't. They're playing games, unless they all say Kimlika Rambam, which is quite problematic to do. Now, I'll show you in a minute why it's almost impossible to do, because it doesn't make sense. I'll show you in a minute. So this is the already Rav Moshe Feinstein writes in this tshuva that one should not say this. One should say, you should say Vikasuv Batorah, not Kemoshe Katuv Batorah, Vikatuv Batorah, or something like that, modifying it not saying said the way it is, because to say it the way it is would be halachically very, very, very problematic. Now, let's see the sources, because this is what's very important. In your, you don't have it. If you look carefully, after the Sfirat, we say Harachaman, the merciful one. He will return to us Avodat Beit HaMikdash Limkoma. He will return to us the service of the temple to its original place. Bimheira, bi'amedu, in speedily and in our days. Amen. So may it be. Selah, whatever that means, that is equated. Is multiple possibilities. So at the end, why do we say that? What is this Harachaman uyachzir lanu avodas Beit HaMikdash Limkoma bimheira bi'amedu amen selah? Why do we say that? What is the reason for that? The answer lies in a Gemara in Menachos. Gemara says in Menachos, in the Daf Samach Vav, the Gemara says that haOmer, the Gemara said that midiraisa, you're supposed to count days and weeks. So Gemara in Samach Vav in Menachos, you're supposed to count days and weeks. Abaye says we count days and weeks. Even today we count days and weeks. And the Gemara says that Rav Ashi, last generation of Amoraim, we count days and weeks the way we do today. We say hayom kach v'kach days, shehem kach days plus weeks. HaOmer, right? You Motzei Shabbos, you just switch to a new week. That's what you said. Okay, haOmer, but the counterpart of Rav Ashi is haOmer. Literally, this is actually the ben Doira of the son of Rav Ashi. Mar Brar Bari Rav Ashi is usually the bar plucked of haOmer. He said, no, mani yoyme v'lo mani shvua. He only counted days and never counted the weeks. Say today's the 42nd day, he wouldn't say 6 weeks. Why not? You're supposed to count days and weeks. It's based on the psukim. You're supposed to count Sheva Shavuos and Chamishim Yoim. There's a mitzvah of Yoim and a mitzvah of Shavuot. Yet he doesn't do it. Bisman Hazeh. The Gemara says, why? Oma Zecher Lemigdashu. It's not biblical. It's not the Rashi. The only reason we do it today is because it's a Zecher Lemigdash. Rashi says over there on the spot, haOmer mani yomer v'lo shvua. haOmer counted days and not weeks. Omar, he said, Haimi Yonah the Hashta. That counting that we do today, lav chayvahu. It's not a regular chiyuv. What do you mean it's not a chiyuv? It's a chiyuv d'Rabbanan. That's what does Rashi mean. Lav chayvahu. It's not a chiyuv. The haleka haOmer, there is no omer, and the deraisa, you have to count from the korban haOmer. There is no korban haOmer bezman hazeh. And therefore he said lav chayvahi. Ella zecher lemikdash ba'alma. It's only a zecher lemikdash alone. Hilkach b'yoyim misagas is enough to do half of the mitzvah. Did you ever hear anything like that before? Ich verstehe nicht, was tut. Was an ayem eisen statt. Do we say that something is the Rabbanan if the mitzvah is basically, although it's not deraisa, but because of Zeichel Amish, we choose to make it a bidrabanan version of the deraisa. One would say there's no mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer bisman hazeh now because there's no Omer. Rabbanan said, you know what? Even when there's no Omer, because of Zeichel Hamikdash, there is a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer even without it. Because the day which is Royal Omer, so therefore we do a Zeichel Hamikdash. Well, then you should do whatever they did there, right? So you do the Rabbanan. Isn't the rule across Shas called the Tikkun Rabbanan? Ke'ein de'iraisa Tikkun. All the mitzvahs Rabbanan are literally copycat, are nothing more than taking the din de'iraisa and with the same form. No nafkamina. What's the difference? Do we change things? Why would we change things? The answer lies in a simple thing. The word Zeichel Hamikdash means multiple things. You see, for example, you blow shofar on Motzei Yom Kippur. Anybody know why? It's a Zeichel Hamikdash to the shofar of Yovel, our Jubilee year, which happens once in 50 years. We blow it every Motzei Yom Kippur. Why are we doing this? This is Zeichel Hamikdash, friends. It's Zeichel Hamikdash. We eat kairach. What you eating kairach for? Kairach was only a way of eating matzah bisman hazeh as their right. So even maror is d'Rabbanan. Maror is d'Rabbanan. It's not their right. So maror is only part of the sandwich together with the lamb. We don't have a lamb. So now we're also eating kairach because Hillel used to eat matzah. What are you doing? So there we explicitly explain when there's no mitzvah of kairach. The mitzvah is to make a zeicher lemikdash by eating this way. And here's the big difference. When there are mitzvahs which basically, because of zeicher lemikdash, which by the way, the source of zeicher lemikdash is a Mishnah in the fourth parak of Sukkah, where the Mishnah says there's a Rabbi Yochanan decided that the seven normally during Sukkot, during the temple, outside of the Mikdash per se, they only took lulav on the first day. Didn't have to spend the whole do it every day. Only in the Mikdash was Samachtam of Hashem Shivas Yomi. They took a lulav and esrog and rejoiced with it for 7 days because that was Lifnei Hashem, in front of God. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said Zeichel because obviously you understand the situation of Yochanan ben Zakkai. Let's remember, it was a terrible trauma. People were used to their religion being focused around the service of the temple. They were used to having Pesach, all stuffed millions of people in Jerusalem that barely can move, right? They were used to that. And all of a sudden, there's no Mikdash. You realize the havoc and the trauma that people are going through. Religion had to somehow take that into account. So he was Zeicher LeMikdash. We're going to do things to remember the Mikdash. The Gemara asked, so what did he do? He instituted there's going to be a mitzvah midrabanan of Lifnei Hashem, not just in the Mikdash, but even B'Gvulin. You can be Mikayim Lifnei Hashem in your head. Midiraisa, you can only do it in the Mikdash proper, the proper setting, with the proper props, if one would say. But Midrabanan, we're going to tell you, it's a very important kavanah when you do this, that lulav all 7 days equals except for the first day, is there, but you have to have a kavanah of Lifnei Hashem. That's why it's very appropriate to be noitos a lulav in the shul, because according to Rambam, that's called a Migdash Ma'at Iraisa, so there's a kiyum of Lifnei Hashem, at least to Rabbanan. I know Kabbalah says you should do it in the sukkah. So many people run to the sukkah for the Abba Minim. Ani noyeg lo kacha, because I want to be mekayim the Lifnei Hashem, at least according to the Shitas of Rambam, that Beis HaKnesses it has a din d'oraisa of Migdash Ma'at, and therefore I do my first into the lulav, not in the sukkah, but in the shul. Just want you to understand. That's a din of Lifnei Hashem. By the way, also dancing Simchas Beis HaShoeva. The only reason for doing it is Zeicher LeMikdash, because there was never dancing in any Yom Tov B'chlal, as brought down in Rambam and Sefer HaMitzvahs. No singing, no clapping, no dancing in Yom Tov. Never found. Rambam said the only place which was done is Sukkot, and only in the Mikdash. In other words, in the streets or in the same places, no one had a dancing event. So when we do it today, according to Rambam, it only makes sense if we do it in a shul or a yeshiva where it's Lifnei Hashem, because Batek Nesias and Batek Midrashas, according to Rambam, have a kedusha of Migdash Mi'at, and that's called Lifnei Hashem. That's why I do not bother to see these different dancing around in the streets and in the stam venues. It makes no sense to me. There's no Embezeinyan. Minhagim have to have a source in halacha, and there's no dancing stam zayin Yom Tov. Simchas Yom Tov, you find me anywhere in Shas or in Shulchan Aruch or in Rambam dancing on Sukkot or on Shavuos. Never heard of it. Never writes before that it wasn't. Writes this in Sefer HaMitzvahs that Simchas Yom Tov does not mean dancing, or it's very important to know. Somehow today people think there's a mitzvah of Simcha and Shabbos. Some machlekes are rishonim. According to many, only in the Mikdash. Once again, only in the Mikdash is there a Simcha of Shabbos, because there's a Korban Musaf. That's why you don't say Yismachu Malchuscha, Shemer Shabbos, but in Nusach Ashkenaz only in Musaf, because that's when you're talking about the Korban of Shabbos, that you're supposed to be a Mikdash experience. That's when you say Yismachu Malchuscha, because there's Simcha and Shabbos in the Mikdash. But outside of the Mikdash, during my Shachas, during my Ma'ariv, that's not a Zeicher LeMikdash Tefillah. It's not Musaf. We're talking about the Kabbanis. There's no inyan to say Yismachav Malchutzchav, because there's no Simcha on Shabbos. So why is it in certain yeshivas they dance around on Shabbos? Ich weiß, halacha idus nicht. I'm an old Litvak, and I this minig makes no halacha sense to me. Maybe they have slinkies in their shoes. They want to move around. They want to jump. Halach, this is sometimes it's what the Chassam Sofer write that minhag is oisi ois gehenim. What can I tell you? It's the same letters. Okay, just flip it around. Allah, those who learned Gemara a lot, or those who heard of Soloveitchik, would know that he abhorred just making minhagim, which did not have a shoyrish in halacha. He almost had the hives when he heard there was a haftarah for Yom Ha'atzmaut. He went ballistic. I mean, there's a famous thing, recording of him going out again. There's no korban musaf. There's no reason for an haftarah. What are you doing here? You know what I mean? But this is because he believed that every minhag had to have a source in halacha. Well, I think that's very true, and therefore this is what it is. So when we talk about zeichel hamikdash, why do we make a zeichel hamikdash? So they bring a pasuk in Yirmiyah, Tzion Deiresh Ein La. Everyone ignores the mikdash. Mikan shetzricha drisha. We must be doresh Tzion. We have to think about it. We have to bring it up in our minds. We should be thinking of mikdash orientation. That doesn't mean you have to visit Mechon HaMikdash in Jerusalem and you don't have to start walking around Har HaBayis. It means whatever mikdash is supposed to be in your mind. Okay, I want to put this very clearly because this is not a politically oriented shir, and me, I'm definitely not a right-wing fascist. Mainstream, Orthodox, Zionist, without all the right-wing extreme frills. Thank God I don't vote in American elections, so I don't have to say whether I'm Republican or Democrat, right? Ben, that was for you. Okay? Amen? Right. So anyway, so one must understand that the Zeichel HaMikdash is a mitzvah tziyun by drisha. So the different things we do. Sometimes Chazal took that value to make a mitzvah called lulav. So what bracha do we make? Asher kitsham mitzvah, that's the mitzvah midrabanan of lulav. And the Gemara asks which things are kosher, which are exactly like deraisa, which we're lenient on. The sugi in the beginning of lulav hagazel, but in principle, it's a mitzvah's lulav. That's why you don't say after that harachamon yachzir lanu avodas beis hamikdash lemekayma. It's a proper mitzvah of lulav. You're being mekayim the mitzvah of lulav d'Rabbanan. Why did the rabbis legislate it? In order to create mikdash consciousness. So the Maisa mitzvah is a Maisa of lulav d'Rabbanan. What ideas is supposed to conjure up? Memory of the mikdash. He says that's true by, for example, by lulav. But by kairach, there is no mitzvah at all. It's meaningless. It's nothing more than an external prop to express which mitzvah you're mekayim by kairach. The mitzvah of tzion by drisha. The mitzvah, the action is an action of remembering the mikdash. As opposed to lulav, it's a mitzvah of lulav d'Rabbanan, legislated in order for you to think about the mikdash. By kairach, it's a maisa of remembering the mikdash. Now, and this is very important because people are not aware what they're saying when they zeichel the mikdash kehillel, and they talk about hillel. But what you're doing here an act of zeichel the mikdash. Haomer's approach is that Sfirat haOmer is the same thing. It is not a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer d'Rabbanan. What is it? It's because it's not. If it would be a mitzvah Sfirat haOmer d'Rabbanan, we would be makpid on what? On, so to speak, on Yomim and on Leilos. No, it's an act of Zeichel LaMikdash. They didn't institute a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer. You're not mekayim. Let's put that bluntly. There's no mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer b'zman hazeh. The mitzvah is Zeichel LaMikdash by Soifrim es haOmer. And that's why we have to explain what we're doing. We say, because we're saying halacha haOmer. So then why do we count days and weeks? If haOmer, according to that, you don't have to be exact. Why do we have a custom not that way? This question is asked by the Baal HaMaor, very famous Razah, the Baal HaMaor, the last piece on Masechtas Pesachim. It's also quoted totally in the last piece of the Ran on the Rif of the Psachim. This is the way the Ran makes it siyum. And it's the last piece. And let me read what he says over here. The Razah says, with Sfirat haOmer, yesh yishalib matam ein anu amrim b'zman. Why don't you say shechianu? You said shechianu on Mikra Megillah. You said shechianu on I don't know what. Why do you say shechianu on the mitzvah Sfirat haOmer? V'oid matam ein anu soifim b'lei bracha b'yontav sheni shel Pesach. Kidi amrina li in sukkah b'shmini safik shvi. The second day of Yom Tov may be the first day of Yom Tov. So you should be a suffix. You shouldn't be making a bracha. More than that, NES. And why don't we count 2 days every day? I don't know whether it's the first or the second. Why are you counting the second day of Yom Tov, after the second Seder? Maybe that's actually the first Seder and the counting has to start the day after. We never found such a reality. We never found there's no shechianu, there's no sveka deyayma. And his answer is klal shel davar. Ein lachmir b'sfirat haOmer she'eina ela lezecher ba'alma. Because it's not a mitzvah sfira d'Rabbanan. It's only zecher be'alma. It's nothing more than an act of zecher l'migdash. V'hachi asikna b'duchta b'menachas, and that's how we the maskana of the Gemara in Menachas. Haomer money yomer v'lei money shvua. Omar zecher l'migdashu. Then in haOmer said, "Afal pi that we do count days and weeks. It's not that we argue with haOmer. We agree at zecher l'migdash. Min hag hu biyadenu. It's a custom. The Ikar Adin, Dr. Balamar, and that's what the Ran quotes, verbally equals the Ran agrees to the Balamar. That we paskin lemaisa like haOmer, but our minig is to be nai like Abai and like Ravash. It is not a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer, midrabanan, legislated in order to conjure up ideas of Zecher l'Mikdash. The whole mitzvah is an act of Zecher l'Mikdash. It's a pity when people don't know this and they're kind of in the midst of Sfirat without thinking, they're messing up the whole thing's meaningless. Don't you understand? Without the conscious awareness of what you're doing, we have defeated its own purpose. It's a meaningless, it's nothing. It's a garnished. So one understands that's why you said, we pray by doing the Sfirat, reminds us this is what we would have had if we would have had that. Now, why do we say and the answer is another Rambam. There's a machlokes in Yerushalmi in Masechtas Brachas. What bracha do we make on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan? Rabbi Yochanan says, "Asher kitsham mitzvayse v'tzivano." Let's say chveis lahadik ner Shabbos, which is the mitzvah of cover Shabbos, which is not the right. So it's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Okay. Rish Lakish says no. Rish Lakish says, "Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kitsham mitzvayse v'tzivano lishmoya b'kol chachamim." Because that's the reason you're doing it, because it's a din d'Rabbanan. You were commanded. God didn't tell you to light candles. Did God tell you to light Hanukkah candles? I don't recall God telling it to anybody. It was already after there was no more nevuah, goodness sakes. We're talking about the Hasmonean period. No nevuah, no anything. Did God tell you to light Hanukkah candles? No, but God did tell you in the Chumash. You have to listen. He empowered the Rabbanan with legislative powers. It's Vasisa Kochal Asher Yerucha. This is a Rambam and Sefer HaMitzvot, which elaborates that the rabbis received their Magna Carta, their empowerment of legislation with their rules, and God says whatever they rule is binding. But God doesn't care about Hanukkah candles. God cares about the fact that there will be, that you will abide the laws of Chachamim, because that is what is needed. Because that's Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The one who elaborates that this in beautifully, which should be read once, each person should take a Meshech Chachma of Rameir Simcha Vince in Parshas Shoftim on the pasuk V'chol Asher Yerucha, and there he elaborates like a whole page on this idea. The guy's not interested in Hanukkah candles. God is interested in the authority of the Chachamim, which legislate Hanukkah candles. Please remember that. So what do? So the Rambam is a very beautiful Rambam. What he does is he merges the two ideas into one. He said the language of the bracha, right? What's the kavana of when you say it? And it's once again, if you don't learn, you don't know. You don't know, you're missing the boat. You say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu mitzvayso. And in your mind, you say, V'tzishvanu lishmoya lechachamim, shetzivo otanu. All this is in your mind. Lahadlik ner Chanukah. So actually, the kavana has to be like Rish Lakish. The nusach is like Rabbi Yochanan. We don't change the nusach because practically we have to light Ner Chanukah, but not because there's a value in Ner Chanukah, because the value is to listen to Chachamim, which told us to light Ner Chanukah. We don't change there's uniformity in the nusach of the bracha, but the intent of a bracha drabban is totally different than a bracha deraisa. Asher kitshanu mitzvayis v'tzvon al netilas yadayim. Can you find the pasuk for me, please? Think of it. It means Asher kitshanu mitzvayis v'tzvon lishma lachachamim shetzivu otanu litol yadayim, because of gzeira, because of truma. You have to understand. That is the concept of making a bracha. So that's the case. We say a Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. When you say Sfirat haOmer, it's Asher kitshanu b'mitzvayso, v'tzivanu lishma chachamim, lasos zecher lemigdash al yedei Sfirat haOmer. That's what you're actually saying. So you're not making a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer deraisa. It's not even called a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer derabanan. It's a mitzvah of Drishat Zion vis-a-vis practically Sfiras counting the Omer. That is why we say Arachmanu Yazulot. We're trying to live a Migdash reality. We want to bring the Migdash into our consciousness. People don't live with that. People think it's awkward. I don't agree with the halachic behavior of people going to the Har HaBayit. But I wish I would want it, because then I would be Mekayim Tzion as a Doresh. I would, but I can't. I don't think you can. I'm not going there. They're not. But do we live with that consciousness? Does this day mean anything to me? That at least there's a shlama, the malchus of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that there is at least a possibility of getting close to Makam HaMikdash, etc., etc., etc. This is a very important aspect of the day, and that's the reason you say you're doing what we call Sfirat haOmer, and you said Arachman. So obviously, think for 2 minutes. To say the Ratzon, the way is the Shem Yuchad in the beginning, which says that Mekayim mitzvah deraisa, and after say the Arachman is oxymoronic. It's either or, brother. Either it's a Zechel HaMikdash or it's a mitzvah Sfirat haOmer. So you have to be a freaking Amor to say them both. It's obvious that the person that wrote this, but paskin like the Rambam, which we don't paskin, and when we say Arachon, we're saying we don't paskin like the Rambam. We paskin like haOmer. We paskin like all the Rishonim. It's only a Zeichel HaMikdash. It's not even a mitzvah of Sfirat haOmer d'Rabbanan. It's just a prop to internalize the fact that we had a Migdash and we want the Migdash. That is a super important thing, which is Negev to us. I think today's the appropriate day to teach this. Okay? This is talking the appropriate day. You're happy about, well, I'm not going there because I don't want to do philosophy and machshava. I want to get more to what we're doing here. So in light of this, now you can understand why we say Ana B'Koyach. Why do we say Ana B'Koyach? It's very, once again, this is Mitalmidei Ha'ari, to say Ana B'Koyach. Why do we say Ana B'Koyach? Did you ever see, you have in front of you the sheet? If you look carefully, there are 42 letters. I mentioned this once in the past. Ana B'Koyach is a poem written by a prominent Tana, which authored very important books of Kabbalah, which the Ramban quotes extensively. He was called Nechunya ben Hakaneh. Nechunya ben Hakaneh wrote a very, very famous book in Kabbalah, quoted constantly in the Ramban. Sometimes he calls it Midrasho Sherebbe Nechunya. Sometimes he calls it Sefer HaKaneh. We have it. Okay, we have it. It's available, but it'll be very cryptic. Sefer HaKaneh, he was a via voice of the Messiah of Kabbalah Misinai, of the mystical teachings of that aspect of Torah. Now we all know, or those who learn Saita or Sukkah know that there are different names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One is Yud K Vav K. There are other names. There are names which are used only in the Mikdash, only by the Kohanim. There's a name which has 72 letters. And there's a name which has 42 letters. The Gemara of the 72 letters is a Gemara in Sukkah in the fourth Perek. Honestly, I mean, Rashi describes it there. He says there are 3 Psukim in Kriyas Yamsuf. You take the first letter of Pasuk A, the last letter of Pasuk B, and the first letter of Pasuk C. That's a name of God. Did you ever read the Chumash that way? Then you take the second letter of Pasuk A, the letter before the last of Pasuk B, and the second letter of Pasuk C. That's another name of God. The accumulation of all those names is 72 letters, and that's a name of God. Just want you to know. Well, then, 2 of those sub-names is one Ani, and the other is called Vaho. You say that in your Haishan, Ani Vahu or Vaho. Hoshia, no, those are 2 names of God, parts of the 72-letter name of God. Shem Ayin Beis. Tyson writes before Shinsaita that Kohanim would say that instead of Yud Kei Vav Kei by Birchas Kohanim. Just want you to know. Okay, now the din is that there's another name of God called Shem Mem Beis. This is not the place to explain these things. It's beyond what we normally do, and there's certain things which you don't teach on Zoom. Okay, Shem Mem Beis. It's an interesting sugya. It's a sugya which is I don't know if you're curious, you start looking it up and learning it. It's a sugya, a chagiga, whatever it be, the Shem Mem Beis. What are the 42 letters of God? Well, if you look at your Ana B'Koyach, if it's in front of you or if you have it on your screen, you look carefully at the different stanzas. How many sentences are there in Ana B'Koyach? Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 sentences in Ana B'Koyach. Each sentence, if you look carefully, has basically 6 words, and therefore after every sentence you will see there's the abbreviations of those words. Notice, for example, we are now in the 7th week. Shavatenu kabel ushmat zakotenu yodeh talumot. Well, look, the letters next to it are shin shavatenu, kuf kabel, vav ushma, tzadik zakotenu, yud Yodeh, and the top is Talumot. But those letters put together are a name of God, which is used only in the Mikdash. Now, this is a beautiful tefillah to learn. I wish I had the time today, but it's a very beautiful tefillah. I'll try to teach this next time, because this is for the whole year. Don't have to just for haOmer. Okay, this is an unbelievable tefillah. It's a meditation, those who know, of the name of God, which is expressed only in the Mikdash. Now, in the Mikdash, when you heard the name of God, what did you say? You didn't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shmai. A bracha with the name of God in the Mikdash, did you say Amen? No. You know what you said? Baruch Shem Kvaid V'Achusei L'Olam V'Od. That's why, look at the end of the Ana B'Koyach, we also say Baruch Shem Kvaid V'Achusei L'Olam V'Od. Because we are going through what we call a Mikdash experience. So the Ana B'Koyach is there because we have just said Harachman Yazon Abayis Beis Amirish the Mekayma. And the county of the haOmer was for that purpose, to conjure up that Mikdash experience in your mind, and therefore we culminated with Ana B'Koyach, which is once again living. In my mind, I'm in the Mikdash, and I'm going to experience it with the Shem Mem Beis. And that's why I say Baruch Shem Kvaid V'Achusei L'Olam V'Od. Just want you to understand what this is. If you look carefully, when in our Siddur do we have Ana B'Koyach? We have it at the end of Korbanot in the morning, if you get the show early enough to say it. And well, Korbanot is what? It's the Shalma Parim Sfatenu. We don't have a Mizbeach. We try to experience the Mizbeach with our mouths. That's a Mikdash experience. We finish it with Ana B'Koyach. The next place where you have Ana B'Koyach and all Siddurim is after you say the 6 Mizmorim that the Ari was masakin to say for Kabbalah Shabbos. Right? You say Ana B'Koyach before you read the poetry of of L'chadaidi, which is just poetry. You say a Mikdash experience. Why is it called the Mikdash? Why is the Mikdash experience there? It's Shabbos. What's Aneh B'Koyach have to do with Kabbalah Shabbos? The answer lies in L'chadaidi proper. Did you notice there are 9 stanzas in L'chadaidi? Look it up. How many of them deal with Shabbos? Shama v'zacha b'diba echad yishmi'anu elam yuchad, etc. Likra Shabbos l'chuva ne'echa ki imikar bracha 2. And the last one, Ba'i b'shalom ateres bala. All the rest, 6 of the 9, deal with the awakening of Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the Mikdash. Isnari mi offer, kumi, liv shibi deite partei chamitz, a pasuk Yeshayahu. Wake up and embrace redemption. Jerusalem, Mikdash. Yamin usmal tifreitzi, we're talking to Jerusalem. Bes Hashem taritzi, ayadish ben partzi. You can have a redemption to the Melech HaMashiach in this Mucha v'Nagila. He's ori, kiba oreich, kumi ori. We're talking about the awakening of the redemption of Bek of Eretz of Yerushalayim and the Mikdash, all of them. What are they doing in Kabbalah Shabbos? Why is Kabbalah Shabbos, actually Shabbos is nothing more, it's like, it looks to me like an American sandwich where you have a bunch of Mikdash and 2 slices of bread of Shabbos in the top, you need a toothpick to stick them together. Shabbos seems to be nothing more than the sandwiching of the Mikdash. That's basically what you seem to have. Shlomo Alkabetz, which was the chaver of the Beis Yosef, much older than the Ari. Actually, he came together with the Beis Yosef from Turkey to Eretz Yisrael, and he writes this, that Shabbos is actually, I would say, the sandwich of the Mikdash. Now, what does Shabbos have to do with the Mikdash? And the answer lies in a Ramban. The pasuk is Shabsai Tishmeru Mikdashi Tiro is written twice in Parshas Kedoshim and in Parshas Bahar. We just read it. And the Ramban explains, if I'm not mistaken, in Kedoshim, when it says in that pasuk, it doesn't mean the Mikdash in Mount Moriah. The Mikdash in Mount Moriah is the pasuk in Bahar that you read last week. The Mikdash described in Kedoshim is the Mikdash of time called Shabbos. Shabbos, he says, is not, there's a Mikdash in place, which is the Har Moriah. There's the Mikdash of time called Shabbos. As Shabsai said, Tishmeru Mikdashi Tiro, you should be in awe of Shabbos because that is your Mikdash of time. Open up a Ramban and see it. It's frightening. I'm not going to elaborate on that now because, time is time. But understand that's the essence of Shabbos is a Mikdash experience, which means you have a place to think of why you're doing things, where you came from, and what leads to, and how you tie up the dots together. That's what Rambam writes in Moreh Nevuchim. The purpose of the Mikdash is to be able to meditate on the content of the Luchos HaBris, which is found in the Kodesh HaKadosh. Only afterwards do you do your sacrifices, but first you have to think about why and what, your covenantal relationship, and then do your mitzvahs. That's the Mefurish Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim. Yes, Shabbos is a day of Melechet Machshavos. We don't ask what, we want to know why. That's the focus of Shabbos, not for today, some other time. Maybe I'll talk about the Shemesh on Shabbos. I don't know. But whatever, this is Shabbos. So Kabbalah Shabbos is Kabbalah's Mikdash Azman. We say on the B'Koyach. There you have it. Sfirat haOmer. Shabbos. Okay? Karbanos. All demand on the B'Koyach Shem Ayin Mem Beis. And that's why you say Baruch Shem afterwards. That's not part of the poem. That the Amen we say, or the Baruch Hu Baruch Shema we say after we mention the Shem Mem Beis. So understand that. There's actually, and therefore there are 7 stanzas here, parallel to the 7 weeks of the haOmer, which we're not going to talk about today. This is all one big Mikdash experience. So I guess it's time specifically tonight. It's Leil Chavchet B'Iyar. It's unbelievable. It's frightening. This is the day. It's Sfirat HaMalchus. Okay, this is the week of realizing all the attributes, all the meters that we have, bringing them into realization of Kavod Shamayim. That's the purpose of the Avodah of this week. To what extent do you realize your theoretical Judaism? Sfirat Malchus, okay, Zer Shine, nice speech, nice thought, nice feelings, pay dirt. God wants a pound of flesh. He wants something practical. How do you translate that into something real? That's what this week is about. And the most real thing I can think about is bringing more Kavod Shamayim into the world. And we can only do that, as I once had a great conversation with Rav Steinsaltz, Zichrono Livracha. And he says, why Mashiach not coming? Because no one really wants him. Who wants a Migdash? Who wants a Sanhedrin? Who wants a Melech? We're used to democracy. We don't want all these things. When I say that this week, it's precisely thinking of this day, is a day we should start thinking, how should we really want this? How much do we really miss? Whatever aspect of Migdash you can connect to is what you should be doing during Sfirat haOmer, because that's Drishas Tzion. That's the mitzvah you're being Mekayim. And when you say a Rachman, like mean it, and then when you go into and you say Ana B'Kayach, it's already after you feel I've transported myself, at least into the Migdash in my mind. It's a beautiful, frightening experience, which I try to work on every Friday night, honestly. I don't say all these Rabbanim Shaloms, I don't say this, but these I say two things added to Sfirat haOmer. I do say the Lam Natseach, because that's a minig kadum b'yoser b'atan rishonim that this was said during Sfirat haOmer. Just want you to know. And I do say the Ana B'Kayach because, I don't sing it. I say it, and I think about it and meditate on it, because I understand how that is just as important as saying Ana B'Kayach by Kabbalah Shabbos. It's the same thing. Okay, guys, have a meaningful, I guess we don't convene till after Shavuos, right? Okay. I don't know. Maybe we'll convene. Maybe, I don't know. When Shavuos? No, can't be. Sunday's already Shavuos. No good. Okay, after Shavuos. Kol Tov, a good Yom Tov, a meaningful Yom Hodaya. If today's the night is the Yom Hodaya for us and for you and for any, it should be called Klal Yisrael, and definitely an unbelievable Yom Matan Luchas Rishonos, which is Shavuos. Okay, with the luchas that we never got because they were broken before we got to it, as you all know. Okay, but we celebrate the first marriage, which wasn't culminated. So obviously it must have been a hot wedding, brother dear, because we're still celebrating it, although we needed like a second go on it. It's really interesting if you think about it. So celebrate, you're receiving the luchas, the shivrei luchos, which is all you got. And I guess you have to figure out how what you're doing on Shavuos will help you connect to what's called the shivrei luchos, because that's all we got on that day. I don't know if you realize that Shivasa B'Tammuz was supposed to be the day of Kabbalah Satorah. Matan Torah was on Shavuos, and Kabbalah Satorah, when we were supposed to get the luchos on Shivasa B'Tammuz. That's when we were supposed to get it. We messed up, so Moses broke the tablet, but that was supposed to be the holiday. The Ari writes that La'asid Lavai, that will be a holiday. But then we will reconnect to Luchas HaRishonos, and that will be the day which should be. So when Aaron HaKohen said Chag LaShem Machar, he meant Moses will come and give us the Luchas. He didn't mean a Chag to the Egel, Chag LaShem Machar. But Moses messed up the plan. He broke the tablets, and God says he was right. But Aaron didn't know he was going to break the tablets. So he said, there's going to be a party tomorrow for God. You guys are going to forget this dumb cow. We're going to have good old this. So you have to understand, this is one trek from Shavuos Biz Shivasa B'Tammuz. When you say this crappy yeshiva, any yeshiva which closes doors beforehand doesn't chop what Matan Torah is and doesn't wait not to receive it. Have a great one. Have a meaningful Shavuos. Take care, guys. Bracha v'atzlacha. Okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Rebbe.
My pleasure.